Hello, everyone, and welcome back to ABG Investor Days. My name is Adrian Glani, and I'm an equity research analyst here at ABG. And I will be moderating our final presentation of the day, together with Håkan Dahlström, President and CEO at Eltel Group, who will hold a roughly 20-minute presentation, and then hopefully we will have time for some Q&A after that. So Håkan, I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Adrian, and thank you all for the opportunity to present Eltel for you. My name is Håkan Dahlström, and since 1st of August last year, I'm the CEO and president of Eltel, a company that I've been in the neighborhood of for many years, being a member of the board for 5 years, and earlier, before that, been a part of the executive management team in Telia for 8-9 years in different roles. Also, working a lot in the IT industry with Tieto Every, and then finally before Eltel Fujitsu. But here now in Eltel, and I'm very excited about the task we have in Eltel, because I think it is very exciting days when this industry that have been impacted significantly of too much supply and too little demand as a result of that communication industry is leaving the copper network, and that we have finally behind us. So I think we are in early stage of the next phase, and that's very important. So I will talk a bit about Eltel and how we see business and strategy, and in the end, a bit of key financials, and happy to take any questions at any time, so don't hesitate. So Eltel in a brief. We are a Nordic company having focus in Nordic. Our largest business is in Finland, where we have 60% roughly of our business in the power segment and 40% in the communication. And next largest business we have in Sweden, where we sort of have the largest portion, 80% something, on communication and the rest in power. Norway have the similar mix, and in Denmark there is a more balance between communication and telecom. So what we do is that we work with critical infrastructure, meaning infrastructure for telecom and for power. This infrastructure is something that we could establish, meaning building, and then over time take services and maintenance assignment on those. So the mega trend that is impacting us is the digitalization and the electrification in the society. This drives a need of much more investment and activity in this, and in the end, that impacts the demand of our services. And that is, of course, something that we would like to utilize and explore. Bit smaller is also things like the changed way of working that all of us have seen during the COVID. Great to see some of you here in the room today. I think that's a little bit unusual, so really good to have you here. But many of us is doing more and more on Teams. That put, of course, new demand on the communication infrastructure, and also in the prolongation, also different things when it comes to digitalization. So digitalization and electrification is really here and now impacting the demand on us, and I think the transport sector is one very visible example of that. The climate change as such will not be solved without technology, and the technology that will be a foundation for different solutions in that area will be based on communication solution and energy solutions. So a lot of initiative and a much more interest, and I would particularly point at the power segment, where I believe most of us understand today that we have underinvested in the power segment in all Nordic countries the last 20-30 years. But that is something that is rapidly changing now, and more or less all actors have new initiatives and new plans. So if you look a bit in the customer dimension, who are we working with? It's well-recognized organization and stable customer, as we have had a long-term relationship with, I will claim, with more or less all of them here in more than 10 years. And that is something that we are really happy for, of course. But it's also so that we need to diverse the base, the customer base, and finding more customer in adjacent area. Because many of the areas that they, as you see here, represent is a very mature business. And in that very mature business, the level of standardization becomes quite high. And that's also what you see if you look at the history on the financial of Eltel is that we have been very much exposed for a price competition in a very standardized business. What I look forward to is to expand our business into adjacent area where the standardization and the maturity in the business is not of that level. So going forward, what I believe we will see is Eltel very active in all of these 6 areas here. Some of them, like fixed, if you think fixed telecom is something that we always have worked with, but today there is no copper money at all here. We don't do anything on the copper network today. If you go back 5 years, it was a significant portion of all revenue that came from the copper network, a network that was more or less between 50 and 100 years old, needed a lot of maintenance and services. It had been a painful last time together with the copper network, but that we have now left behind ourselves. And I would say that during 22, we have had no revenue whatsoever from the copper network. So I would say that the revenue mix today is much more future-proven than it has been the last 5 years. 5G in the mobile area, different timing in different countries. In Sweden, this infrastructure have to reach a certain level based on the requirement in the license in the end of 2024, so that put pressure on that. But I believe the 5G rollout will continue also after that, at least for 4 or 5 years more. Other countries like Norway are more or less at the same speed as Sweden. Maybe Norway is 1 year behind Sweden, but then Finland, on the other hand, is 1 year ahead of Sweden. So in Finland, we see most activity in the fiber to the home, where we in Sweden believe that fiber to the home have peaked in Sweden. We believe also that the peak in Norway is here or very soon here. So Finland, most active in the fiber to the home area today. Sweden, Norway, more active in the 5G. And then the fixed wireless access is an area that, a technology that will be used when there is no business case really deploying the fiber further out in a really rural area. And here we could see particularly Norway today is very active in that, very attractive solution in that. In the power, we are active in all areas from power transmission, meaning high voltage, down to distribution, substation, overhead lines. In Finland, we have the complete portfolio of offerings in power. In Sweden, very limited. There we work with the distribution solution. Smart grid is about being a part of the digitalization of utilities. Think water metering, gas metering, that type of thing. That is something that we have a niched business in Germany, a very good market position in the very large market of Germany. Here we see a potential to have significant growth going forward. So even though there is very niched, we believe that this is a very strong value for us due to the position we have. In the Nordic market, this type of activity is done more in phases. So today we are most active in Sweden, working together with Vattenfall. So we will sort of this year swap more than 250,000 meters to Vattenfall this year. We did the same last year. Then we believe that the market will become more intensive in Finland later this year and early next year. After that, we believe it's Denmark, Norway. So this is a business that is a good business for us, and it's sort of cycled in the way that the lifetime of a meter is like 7-8 years, and then we know we have to come back and swap it again. The new areas here is representative of renewable energy, and this is an example where I believe we can do much more going forward. This is also what I see, what I like to change within that Eltel that I joined for 6 months ago, that we need to do more business development in this area of renewable energy. And then I think about everything from wind, solar, energy storage, EV mobility. All of these areas have, as I see it, a great potential for Eltel, since it's not only so that the growth in this area is better than in the typical classic area for us. It's also so that this business is not standardized to that level the discussion with customer is not so focused on price as it is in our traditional areas. So we will still do what we have done, but we will add these areas to our portfolio. And we have today experience in all of these areas in most of the Nordic countries, but we are, as we speak, increasing our effort in all of them. And we believe this is also areas where we could expect higher margin than in the very standardized, commoditized areas as we have as the bulk of our business today. So today we are involved in 9 different wind projects, meaning that we take a turnkey responsibility for a wind park, and we are then delivering everything except the turbine. Normally, the business logic in a wind park is that the customers select the turbine themselves, and it's a big portion of the cost to establish a wind park. So that is something the customer keep close to themselves. Solar, I would say that we are now in the beginning in the Nordic of paying real attention at solar. For 6 months ago, we had no pipeline in solar. Today, we have a significant pipeline in solar. And this week, we won our first large solar park that we have taken the responsibility for establishing a 5 megawatt solar park. And that will be the first and the largest one of that size. We will be able to talk more about that within 1 or 2 weeks. We have seen some solar installation in Denmark earlier, but otherwise it has been most small installation on a rooftop. We have tried that also, but we have deselected that and see that both when it comes to solar and when it comes to e-mobility, we will not address the consumer market. We will address the enterprise market to have a larger scale and repeatability in whatever we do. Then the energy storage. Yeah, what I also would like to emphasize here on this new area is that in contrast to the traditional areas where Eltel have been active, like building a telecom mobile network, where the customer are selecting Ericsson or Nokia, and we are more executing on it. In these areas, we see a possibility to take a design responsibility. We select the technology, we take a responsibility from A to Z and have the solution ownership. That gives us also a possibility to select the technology. So for like e-mobility, we have Siemens, we have Kempower, we have Unicorn as partners. Then we can build a solution, sell a solution to the customer end to end. That gives us also the possibility to expand in the value chain, meaning that we foresee as a service business model. Instead of what we have done before is very much we come establish something, then we are exposed for competition when it comes to maintenance and services. But in an as a service model, we establish it, get a payment for that as a milestone payment, and then we continue with a service level agreement with a monthly fee. So if you need as a company to have charging points at 20 different locations and 6 to 8 or 10, whatever charging points at each of them, we would be happy to design that and then also give you as a service agreement with a monthly fee on that going forward. So a better possibility to deliver long-term custom experience, but also challenge our role in the value chain, meaning taking as a service role here. The energy storage is a similar thing, and here I believe it's a good also example how we can utilize the competence that we have and the capacity we have, being able to do large rollout and then get sort of installation done in many, many different locations in one organized and well-structured project. So the services and the offering that we do, I would like to start on the lower part here. With project delivery, we mean that we establish something, we build something, we build a new part of that critical infrastructure. That project and that knowledge gives us the possibility to be very competitive when it comes to later on when we should upgrade these services or when it should maintain. So every new project is building sort of an addressable market for us in the service and maintenance business. And today, these services is more than half of our business. Then looking a little bit on why the customers is choosing Eltel, I would say that in the past, it has been extremely much about a standardized business model where the big customer have been very price-oriented. And the good thing now, as I see it in the new areas, is that we talk about other stuff. It's very much about go-to-market and our possibility to deliver this over a natural coverage. So the customer normally nowadays want to know, are we covering the whole Sweden, the whole Finland? Because if they're going to establish some infrastructure, they want us to be capable of doing that over all of that surface, dependent on what customer they have in the end. So the 24 service model, the natural coverage in all countries in Norden is important, but also this, that we have a great track record of customer satisfaction and quality in the deliveries we do. I would claim that if you need to deploy fiber in a small area, you could always find someone that can do that cheaper than us. But if you need a large rollout with a structured and predictable delivery, then I think you should choose Eltel. So our way forward is to reach this target that we have communicated since long, that 25 we will have 5% EBITDA, and that with a modest growth of 2 to 4%. I would say that this is very much doable, because what I think is different now than before is this, that there is a very different balance between supply and demand. So everyone that we talk to wants to do more with Eltel, and I predict that that will continue, even though we have sort of uncertainty in the economy, and we will face surprises, of course, as we did in the fourth quarter, when two of our largest customers suddenly, a bit as I see it, too rapidly changed their own investment plans, and by that reduced the volume in the workflow to us significantly, and that led to a very poor financial outcome of the fourth quarter. And now it will take us some time to adjust our organization to that new situation, but I see that as something that we are dealing with during this first quarter, and I will expect the improvements to come in the second quarter of this year. But to improve the profitability, efficiency is of course one part of it, but even more important is the price. We have now, since the last 6 months that I have been on board, have had much higher ambition when it comes to our own tendering, when it comes to new contract. But it's also so that we address inflation and cost increases in the existing contract. But the way of doing that is very much about indexes, and that has a delay. So indexes is normally measuring a development over 12 months. So if you are looking at something, it normally, so from example with November 21 to November 22, and then that result will impact the contract from January, and then it means that whatever the customer is ordering from February 23 will come by that newer price. But as you understand, there is a significant delay in the benefit for us with that type of index. It's also so that we have tried, and still are doing, having discussions with customers that we need to shorten this time. It's unreasonable that we should take all of that delay ourselves. Some customer, this has been possible to discuss, and we have some specific cost compensation when it comes to fuels and others. But I would say that the indexes will start working for us now in this year, 2023. Also, the new areas, what I call here new and adjacent market, those areas are less standardized, less mature, and the customer is more interested of getting things done than the third decimal in the price. The traditional business have been price-oriented for quite some time, and it's great to see that the new areas, we are more into how to do it, how fast can we do it, and to what level can we do it. And then price, of course, comes always in, but it is not the decision factor as it is in the traditional business. This slide I have here to give you a feeling of how far have we come in these different areas that we say we are working on to improve our profitability. And I've as I have talked a bit here about price and inflation, I'm happy to see that we have come quite far, and what we have done there has not had any negative impact on the hit rate we have. I would say that we have, during 2022, won more contract than ever within Eltel, and in the fourth quarter, that we also have had this new ambition on higher prices. We have had more sales than ever. So I think we are very confident going forward with this new business model as a service. I mentioned that, an expansion in the value chain. It is more or less 20-25 years since the organization like Fortum, Telia, that type of organization made outsourcing of these type of services as we are. And now, 20 years later, it is time to challenge that value chain and see how can we expand even further. A few highlights from previous year. Q4 revenue here, 212 million in contract signed, to be compared with 125 the year before, and that is a quarter during which we had this higher ambition in pricing all the quarters, and for the full year, 825, to be compared with less than 400 the year before. So I would say that this new way of thinking for us when it comes to pricing has still not had any negative effect, rather the opposite. We also see a small increase on net sales, not yet impressive, but for us, a trend shift, meaning that we have left the time of copper and that behind us, and now are comparing future technology services with new future services, so to say. In the fourth quarter, as I mentioned, we had a bit of negative surprises when it comes to the workflow. Our large customer, two of our large customer, started in the end of third quarter, and then it was fully visible in the fourth quarter to reduce their investment ambition. And that is a relationship that we have with them based on a frame agreement, and that means that there is no volume commitment. We do things unit price based, and when that workflow is going from quite high level, and as we have had it during Q1, Q2, and Q3, step by step increased volume, and then take it down to more or less zero. That gives us an impossible situation. So we have initiated a saving program, meaning that we adjust the organization towards this new situation where they don't have the capacity to invest as they have done before. And that saving program we launched, and we will finalize that during this quarter, meaning that in the end of March we are done, and that will give us 12-month running rate, more than 10 million euro. We will see the benefit starting in second quarter, and then step by step during the rest of the year coming upwards. Look at the total group numbers for full year 22. We see that the 824 million is a small growth on net sales, 1.4. The good thing is that it's a trend shift, but I'm not really happy with that number. I think we could do much better. The operative EBITDA is hurted significantly of this fourth quarter based on inflation and high sick leave, and then a few contracts that was sort of very far from the forecasting that the customer have done, and that will take us a bit of also this year to recover from. I mentioned the saving program. This will impact more than 200 roles in Norway and Finland. We have a cost of change to doing this, of course, and we believe that will be in the neighborhood of 5 million euro that we will take in the first quarter of this. But this program will give us the long-term benefit, and we are quite confident that the 10 million euro that we have here will be reached, and that we will see this from the second quarter. Most positive from last year, I would say, is the increase in new contract. Also, so that this contract that we have achieved is sort of giving us the confidence that we have the possibility to broaden our customer base, and that we also are competitive in these adjacent areas, close to what we have done before. So in the fourth quarter, we see here new customer, Exelon in power wind, a turnkey project of 11 million euro. Great to see. In Sweden, a power contract. It's a frame agreement on 32 million. We can say 32 million quite confident because this is an exception. This is a frame agreement that have volume commitment. So that's very good for us. And then also Trafikverket, Transportation Administration in Sweden, a more and more important customer for us. And with a significant investment that Sweden as a country are having on the agenda, this is a very good contribution to that. Telia, of course, a very valuable and important customer for us. So good that we have been able to secure a portion of that relationship. But maybe even important in Norway that we can broaden the customer base so where we understand that Telenor is too important. We are too dependent on Telenor in Norway, and we have to divide that customer base. So Viken Fiber here, extremely important. With that, I think I have sort of used my time and what I had planned to say. So happy to take any questions.
I'll round off with perhaps one question. We've used up a bit more than our allocated time already, but if we just look at the margin target of 5% by year end 2025, can you just outline quickly sort of the outside of the cost savings program, the one or two things that need to happen between today and year end 2025 for you to reach that target?
Yeah, I would say that we continue being successful on pricing that we now have had for 6 months. And up to now, I don't see any negative effect of that, rather the opposite. And I believe we could keep up this good work and have the same hit rate as we have today and have had during the last 6 months. I think pricing is the most important part of this. And then the second most important is that we can expand into this new adjacent area of renewable energy and efficiency improvement in energy, but also new communication solution in public infrastructure. And then, of course, keep up the very good work we do in 5G swap and fiber to the home. But pricing and then new business in adjacent area. And then, of course, efficiency as always. We always have to look at that, of course.
Okay. With that being said, I think we're going to round off here. I would like to thank you for your presentation, and I'll just leave it up to you if you'd like to say any final remarks before we end.
No, I think we are in a very exciting time. I've been close to this for many, many years, and it has always been higher supply than demand. And now, when the investment is coming in, more and more players want to invest both in communication, but particularly in renewable energy. I see this as a shift, and I think that we are very well positioned to capitalize on that. So exciting days.
Okay.
Thank you.